Yo, what's up, guys? What if you were come to a CEO? What would you change in the balance patch? Let me know that in the comments because I'm actually pretty curious about what you guys would say is the best balancing that you would do. And you have to keep in mind, keep it somewhat fair and not just simply be like, oh, I'm gonna buff all the units I have and nerf all the units I do not have. Because that is most of the time how people would like to see a balance patch in general. But then again, not everyone has the same units. So therefore, it's going to be a very diverse idea behind what should be changed. But I can then again say that some units, such as Oliver, has been reigning for a very long time. But it's pretty curious to see what would you guys like to see in a balance patch. Definitely, I could say the few balance patch that we had recently were pretty poor. They were pretty lame. They didn't change that much. But let's look at what can actually be changed. And I'm going to be doing a prediction in my video right here for what I think will be the balance changes, and that's just kind of guessing based off what hasn't been changed much, what has been being too strong at the moment, what has been too weak at the moment. Mostly they do kind of look at those units, plus the units that haven't been changed in recent patches yet. So a combination of those. But I'm actually more curious to hear about you guys, what you guys would like to see in this game being balanced. What would you focus on? Would you focus mainly on RTA or Siege, or actually get some PvE stuff in to get something more like Prillias out there? But then for every dungeon, so you have a good Prillia for dragons and Necro, and well, Necro I think is kind of fine, but maybe Steel Fortress with the buff block, or would you focus more on just removing a lot of the OP LDs in RTA, or would you actually buff a lot of OP LDs in RTA and therefore create an insane OP LD meta, or would you be more focusing on Siege to remove all of the OP Siege offense right now with like shit ton of Sonias and Adrianas, and Siege is way too easy at the moment for a lot of these offense. So I'm very curious. Let me know in the comments what you guys think is the way that you would like to see the game being balanced. However, I'm not going to be answering that question for myself. I will actually be answering the question, what do I think will come to us do in this balance patch? So this is going to be more of, for me, a balance patch prediction. So let's see. First of all, well, we do have this site right now where we can see when balance patches are. And most of the time, the balance patches are around the 24th to 29th of the month, like sometimes 30th. Yeah, that's like the 1 month doesn't really count. So I do assume that we're going to get the balance patch probably after the 29th. So I kind of expect it on the 31st. And the reason I do expect it on the 31st, well, there's actually two places where I could expect it. If we keep in the 2-week patch cycle, then it should be next week. However, next week, the RTA season did not finish yet. We do have the Siege tournament on the 22nd, so that part is done. But the RTA is finished on the Saturday on the 29th. So I wouldn't really be expecting a balance patch in this week because the RTA season isn't finished yet. But I wouldn't be surprised if we get on the Friday or somewhere around there already the notice what it's going to happen, for example, on a Monday or a Sunday, wherever they want to hit the balance patch. Most likely they would do on the Monday. So that is my expectation for the date. So that is the prediction for the date. I will predict it on the 31st of March. That is the first thing. Then we can be looking at like what kind of units have never been buffed. And this is actually a list of all of the units that haven't been buffed. And if we look at those, a few do stand out, which are currently a little bit weaker. I would definitely say Sylvia kind of stuff is definitely not going to get changes. I would say that maybe some of the Spectre Princesses, Goth Mummies, I would say that these Tomb Warriors, maybe. Wardens, they are, I think. Tomb Wardens. Demon Slayer units. I think it might be too early for Demon Slayer units, but it could be that they already want to address them. There's still a few units out there, like, for example, Beelzebub and Fire/Dark Hacker. Maxi, those haven't been used much. Lucifer. Well, Lucifer is kind of good at the moment, so I don't really expect to have that any change as Coco, weirdly enough. I would actually say the Cyborgs, they could get a change as well. And those are just a few units just writing down the that could be. And then we're going to be looking at if they're actually going to be as well. I am actually thinking about this is the Siri, right? Didn't this one get a buff? I'm not 100% sure. Maybe I'm thinking about a different unit. No, actually, I do think that the Fire Siri got a buff. But I could be wrong with that. Either how. Let's look at the first units that we have over here. So let's go into the game and let's check for the Goth mommies that we have at first. Well, Dark, totally fine. Doesn't need any changes. Light is really weak. I'm not 100% sure. This is kind of this inverted ragdoll kind of shenanigans. But the bad thing is, the whole family where the sacrifice is the skill 2 is insanely good. But that is only for both water and dark. Those are really, really good. But the other 3, they kind of want to be having that skill as well. I would say Theodora is somewhat okay-ish. The easiest buff you could do is make S1 HP scaling. But I think that would be way too OP for Valeska and Lamila. I can buy an insane Martian because these 2 units are already really good. If those weren't already good, then the easiest buff would have been S1 HP scaling. So maybe S1 HP scale. But that would be a little bit too OP. So I would rather say that I think it's going to be some changes in this S2 to do a little bit more because currently it doesn't do enough. You could lower the cooldown to a 2-turn cooldown. That could maybe be a thing. Those are often the simple changes. And this passive, gaining the attack bar, I'm not too sure. Maybe you should up this as well or just add something else to this passive because the water one feels pretty weak. Another unit that I do want to write down, which is already changed in the past. Wait, you don't even see the whole list right now. And we're gonna scroll this a little bit more. Yep. Draken Warriors. Because those are just kind of bad at the moment as well, like all of them. So yeah, I do expect something on the S2 lower cooldown, or yeah, and then just like S3 add more to passive, and that counts both for these 2. Because both of their passes just don't do too much. So I think that would be something for the Goth mommies that might be addressed in those. So that is done for Goth mommies. Tomb Warriors. I am not too sure if the Tomb Warriors are actually that bad or just not used as much. I've seen a few being used in Siege here and there, but they're just not all too great altogether. Do they have skill 1 HP scaling? No, I think that would be easiest to fix as well. Like just simple S1 HP scaling. And if you do that, then they immediately get pretty decent already because all of the other skills, they're not necessarily bad. Like they have some niche mechanics in their kit. They do provide a decent amount of things like armor breaks, they have strips, they have a whole bunch of stuff. It's just the skill 1 is kind of a wasted skill. If they get S1 HP scaling, I think they're instantly good and done. So I think we're gonna look at those like that right away. Demon Slayers, I'm gonna actually park towards further down. Beelzebub and Lucifer, well, those have been units that have been released for 5.5 years and never have been buffed, which is actually fucking insane. Lucifer, first of all, I don't think Lucifer really needs a buff. Like, this is totally fine, so I would more look at just Beelzebub. The most common buff, everyone says like, oh, Beelzebub should get an insta-turn the moment he comes back. Yes, but I still think that he would be weak at that moment. Simply because you can reset him, you could just ignore him and kill him all the way at the end and something like that. So what I would say is he has to do is the moment that he is not reset, the moment he dies, he should immediately go for a 0 HP Mad Justice. That's something that is in a different game. I think something like that would make him really nice because right now he's just too easy to ignore. And at that point, the moment you kill him accidentally, he immediately kills something on your team. So he becomes a really good counter unit. So I would say when dies, use S2. At a 0 HP and then can it revive itself? I don't know, make something out of it. But I think that he should do something like that because otherwise he just dies off. Like 100% sure, the moment they finally give the buff that everyone says like, oh, it makes sense, I can guarantee you the unit is still not going to be enough because the skill 1 is really not going to do that much damage. And the skill 2, unless you're at super low HP, doesn't ignore defense that well. If you do this skill at full HP and you go down to 50% HP, you're probably hitting like a 20k or something like that. And the moment you use your S2, people immediately focus you because the moment you come back, you don't have your S2, it's completely useless, right? So I would say something like this. Plus, well, let's write it like that. Still get the insta turn on revive. I think that's still a must. So those are the two things that I would go for Beelze, and that just makes sense. Then the Fire and the Dark Hacker have never been buffed, but I think they're both in a state where they're strong enough. Some people might say like, oh, but I don't like Nyx, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. It's still a really, really good unit. It's an insane good last pick if someone is using a lot of buffs on your enemy team. And it's also a pretty good siege or arena defense unit. So I think that these don't really need a change. So I would be highly surprised if they actually do get a change, because both of them are pretty damn strong already. Then Maximilian, everyone's favorite cool looking unit, but in current meta is not that strong. Would I dare to say buff this unit? Because if you give this thing the slightest buff, he instantly becomes way too insane probably again. So I think that he is kind of fine as the current state he is in. Even though he's not really an RTA unit at the moment, he's more of a siege off and siege defense unit. Arena, you don't really use him. PvE, he's really good in a lot of places as well. So I would not say buff Maximilian. Skogul, we haven't seen in ages, but I also don't think it's really a unit that they're going to be focusing on. So to be honest, I'm just going to remove that thing altogether. Cyborgs, however, I wouldn't be surprised if Cyborgs do get a little bit of a change. We do have the Cyborgs not being used as much, especially because Roberta doesn't have the perfect AI. Also, if it were to get a perfect AI, it would still be a pretty bad long animation as well. But I would say Dark, S3, perfect AI. And maybe you do that by hitting on more harmful effects or something like that. That's something that you could do over there. I would say that Fire is kind of underrated as well. I would say that if you want to make this really good, Fire, S3, no glance. If you make this thing a no glance, then this would be used by everyone. This would be instantly the best armor breaker in game, because then you have a no glance guarantee hit as long as you have more attack than the enemy. But it doesn't do anything else than that. So whereas all of the other units where Dark Tanjiro provides the irresistible buff, the Truffle gets pushbacks, other units have dots, Galen has attack buff, blah, blah, blah. This is only an armor break, but it is a 100% armor break. So I kind of would like to see that. I think it's definitely nice for some creative teams out there. So that is the one for that. The other cyborgs aren't really used much, and I'm not really sure how you would buff those. Maybe it's just something more on that S2, because the S2 is just not that much damage on neither of them. So buff S2, but I'm not even sure in what kind of sense. So that's something that I might see for the cyborgs. Then looking at the Dragon Warriors, which are arguably really bad at the moment still. Simply because, well, I think they just don't really fit. They're pretty cool units. The Fire one, however, is pretty good. But the Dark one is easiest. Dark CR/Speed Awakening. This is one of those units that has the Res Awakening, so that's just a relatively easy buff on it altogether. Plus, if you want to make him really OP, during duel, no debuffs. So currently he can't get stunned anymore. I think they already added that into his duel, but I think he should just altogether not be able to get debuffed. Because if you 1v1 a Nana that gives you an attack break or something, you're not gonna do shit altogether in the first place. So I think that he would have to have something like that. Fire is definitely fine as is at the moment. Water and wind are kind of okayish. They could maybe use a little bit more, but I think that they're somewhat more on the okay-ish side. I would say that you could say for the water/wind S1 def scaling. If you give that, the def scaling on, because this is an attack type, these are defense types. Yeah, the one that are what is your awakening? Change your awakening to change the skill 1 to give a defense scaling on them. Because it's always weird when you have a family with attack types and some defense types, and then the defense types are scaling from skill 1 attack. It's just kind of bad. So if you give that to, and also the light, I think that that would be a pretty good buff for the Draken Warriors altogether, and that might be something that they could do. Also, this passive, I think it's just horribly bad and needs like a full redesign. Like, to be honest, light S3 redesign, because this thing just adds something more. I don't know. It's just straight up bad. So that is that for the Draken Warriors. Then Demon Slayer. Do we already expect Demon Slayer units to be buffed? Because those are the most recent released units. They have been there for a decent amount of time already. But I'm not sure if they're already going to address them. If they would address any, I would say Inosuke. That's probably the least used family out there. And then I would say the S1/S2. Like, those kind of skills are just like horrendously bad. That's why the Dark one isn't good at all. This one, of course, is really good, but it's mainly good because of that skill 3. But the others are legitimately not good. Anyone that says that this one is good because of the strip, no, don't. It's so useless to get the additional turn into a skill that none of those actually do anything. If this was a guaranteed land on the S2, then sure, we're talking. Then you could actually do something with it. But just the no glancing, nah, not good enough. So, but then again, do I really expect the Demon Slayer units to be already addressed in this balance patch? I actually don't think so. So I'm just gonna remove them. It's, well, let's say like, I give it like a maybe. Then let's look at some tier lists to see what was OP, what was not OP. So this is the tier list for the current season. Wait, do you see all the way at the top? No, well, there's a Laura above that. So let's say, first of all, Laura. It's just simple. What would we do to Laura to not absolutely Gurkha the unit, but still make it good enough? That is the big question. And I could say maybe S3 remove speed buff. Would that be too harsh for her? I'm not sure. I think she's still pretty good after that as well, even if you don't have the speed buff. So I think that that would be the smallest change that you could do without gutting her. Or S3, remove def scaling. Because the def scaling, while getting a defense buff, just makes her do an absurd amount of damage as well. So I think something along the lines of that. I would also say Jongnam is definitely one of the ones that's like, if you're sitting at 100 tier as a normal elemental unit, then you definitely deserve to be at least talked about. So Jongnam, I would say S3. The absorb right now, how much absorb do we have? Is it like, I think it is a good amount. I think you can get full turn, so it should be like, what, 30, 40? I actually don't really freaking know. I just know it's a lot. You have 40 attack absorb. Okay, that's absorb. We go for a 40 towards a, I would say legit like 20, and maybe lower healing. I don't know, something like that. I think with those changes, you're already looking at like a decent position with Jongnam not being too freaking idiotic as it is right now, because this unit is really an idiot unit right now. So wouldn't be surprised if his S3 mainly gets adjusted, because the other in the family, Gapso, is still kind of okay-ish, but it's not necessarily like, ooh, that's so OP, so they most likely will look at the S3. Then we have a few more LDs in here with Silver and Gojo. I kind of expect Silver and Gojo not to be addressed. I kind of do expect Tian Lang and Gianna to be addressed. So what do I expect for, first of all, Gianna? I think Gianna's the easiest. S3 stun on no strip. I think that will go from like 70 or like 85 that it is right now. I wouldn't be surprised if they make it to like 50. Something like that. I would really be surprised if they don't address Gianna one more time. Like, and to be honest, fucking nerf her, I don't care. Like, legit, I don't care. But I think her S3 would probably go down to like lower rates once again. Maybe they do like 75 to do small steps, or 50 or something like that. I would be surprised if they make it 0, because they most likely, it's very uncommon for them to completely revert a change they did in the past. But I would definitely expect this to be a lot lower rate. Tian Lang, though, you could... Tian Lang is a little bit hard to do, because Tian Lang, in the end, what makes him really strong is his attack bar gain. You could lower the attack bar gain, or the attack bar decrease that you give on the enemy. So, because Tian Lang, in the end, is pretty strong right now, but is it also that elevated because of Laura and Gojo being that strong? I don't know, but maybe the S3 rates slightly down. I would give something like that, because if you remove this or lower this like by a lot, then you immediately got the Tian Lang pretty hard. And since you're looking at a 15, like making this to, let's say, a 10, it's already a lot less. But it's definitely an option that they could be looking at. But I would say slightly less rates on that Tianling. I think that will be fair for the unit, even though I have it right now. But he is pretty busted altogether. Then we'll look at the 95 tier. I would say Zerutu, Mi Ying, those are totally fine. Light Pony, it is, in my opinion, kind of fine. It's more of a sack unit. If it sacks, it looks like the best thing in game. If it doesn't sack, it looks like why was it even there? So I would not really be expecting a nerf on it, to be honest. Oliver and Sonia, however. Oliver, I think Oliver is just good because it's elevated by the meta itself. And you could, for example, say 33 lead into 24 lead. That's something that has been said for a while. But in that process, I would like to see Oliver get back S3 damage improve. If they would do that, I would do it both ways. I wouldn't mind Oliver being a 24 lead. I think Oliver being a 24 lead is totally fair and totally fine. But I would like to see Oliver be able to deal damage rather than just those stupid-ass tank Olivers that we see all together right now. But that's what I personally would like to see. I'm not really sure that they would address Oliver altogether, to be honest. Sonia, however, I wouldn't be surprised if they lower the passive of Sonia. And I think that they keep the nuking skill of Sonia intact. I would be surprised if they address that because that's already buffed from 50 to 60 for the nuke itself. So that's where they gave like this. Plus, you would also hard nerf Destiny if you would do that. But the skill 3, I think that you should get less glancing hits in or something like that. Less glancing, like just down the rates of the S3. I think that would be a fair nerf for Sonia without gutting her because she still has the potential of actually hitting hard and that kind of stuff. And that's also Sonia's kind of a unit for something that they could do. Then again, Contours did mention that they rather like to buff units rather than to nerf units. So these are all, these are all nerfs, but they more likely like to look into buffs, into something that could counter this rather than saying like, okay, we like to gut units. So that might be a thing. For example, to nerf the Gianna, they added in the Mi Ying to be really strong. So therefore they created that unit. Jongnam was, I'm not sure who Jongnam was supposed to counter in current meta, but maybe also the LDs altogether or something like that, or the Valid Jewel that was getting pretty dominant. Maybe it's one of those units that it was buffed for. But yeah, they kind of tried to balance that out. So we could, of course, look at the bottom and then see what's at the bottom and then try to buff those. But I think we also can just simply look at like what are bad LDs and just kind of like give a glimpse over that and how I would buff those. So we do have a bunch of bad LDs as in Geralt, Dark Geralt. We have Ariana. Let's just say buffs. And let's just give a little bit more space to myself. Yes, sir. I would say I want to add E into it. Beelzebub we did already talk about, so I'm just gonna put it like this right away. Jackson is definitely one of those units. Hanwoo is one of those units that I would put on the list. Trinity Nigong, maybe, but I don't really expect anything on that. Same for the Ritsu. Rahul already had 16 million buffs and it's still terrible, so don't really expect those neither. But those could be units that they address. Personally, but this is a personal favor, I would like Lima. Because I really like Lima and I don't really like Gianna at the moment, so that's something for me personally. Well, Dark Geralt, I would say damage increase is bomb damage increase. Or the thing that I would like most, but I always give the ideas of like, I want some consistent buffs. And consistent buff is if for buffs is guarantee bomb. But Contours doesn't like to do that shit. That's something that I would like to do is like, oh, let's say that you have a shield buff and then you give Adriana with a triple buff with the immunity, attack buff, and speed buff, you guaranteed land your bomb. I would absolutely love that, but Contours doesn't like consistency like that. So I would say just damage increase that does actually count for the bomb. Simple. Ariana, I would say S3 is passive. Just give it a try on that and see if that works. I think she's still probably kind of mid at that point, but at least it gets a lot better. Ian, it's the simplest one as well. Res Awakening into CR Awakening and done. That's simplest Ian buff of my life. They should definitely start be doing that. Jackson, I would say, Jackson is one of those hard units where I think that his passive should do something slightly more. Like, the thing is, the moment that you give Jackson somewhat of a part of the passive of Miles, Miles loses its shine as well. Like, let's say you add extra damage for speed or something like that. I don't know, but I think that his passive should maybe do something else. Like, what if his passive does something weird as, like, every hit, random debuff? And then you could have a debuff of like 5 different kind of debuffs, and you get one of them like slow, attack break, death break, something like that. Like, he needs something more where his skill 1 and skill 2 actually have value to be used rather than him being a totem on the field, absolutely doing nothing. I think something like that would be nice. Humble buff, I think that Humble needs a rework on that S2. Like, I would say that he does have a crit awakening right now. You could give Humble a awakening into S2 because his S2 is absolutely useless. You need accuracy to land the S2. This thing is never gonna have accuracy in his life. Apparently, Humble did get a buff prior, like a few years ago, where his skill 3 added up 32% damage. Like, sure, if you add 32% damage right now, we're looking at something interesting, but just to make the kit cohesive and useful, they just gotta rework into the S2 and then give the S2 something else where he self-attack buffs or self-crit buffs or whatever the fuck he's supposed to do. I don't know. But make this S2 scroll trap is absolutely useless for him. If you would give him this the other S2 from the Heigang and stuff, the strip, he also doesn't really need that. He just has an S2 that completely doesn't make sense with any of his kit. So I would say awaken into his S2 and maybe make the S2 a passive. Yeah, that could be a thing, S2 passive. And then the S2 does more damage for some reason. Like, you just want to nuke with this thing. So anything related to more damage by the S2 rather than just anything S2 to make the S3 better. That's just simple as that. Lima is also one of those, but that is definitely something that I would like to see myself. I'm not sure if you would make her too OP again, because at the moment that Lima did have the 10 going to 15% crit per, or ATP per crit. I would like Lima to go for the Awakening, which currently her Awakening is into the S2, and she gets an S2 where she gets a guaranteed strip and a slow. To be honest, I don't give a shit. Just remove that. Remove S2 Awakening. Add S1 Awakening. I can't write. You get the idea. I don't give a shit. And we go for this. This is going to be your Awakening, and you're the only unit or the only Oracle that can actually do that. I hope they do this, but I kind of doubt that as well. But that would be really cool if they add it for Lima. So those are my things for buffs on the bad LDs that are out there right now. This is still pretty old, where the Igar was actually strong and shit. But yeah, this one is still pretty high up. Looking at normal elemental units for buffs and nerfs. Well, we did talk already about the Sonya. You could say for elemental net 5 nerfs, you could say that, I would say that it's more siege related, and I think a lot of non-siege players wouldn't agree. But Adriana and Camilla and also Sonya, but I did already kind of address Sonya, they are too OP in siege. Like, if you have 5 Adrianas and 5 Camillas, your siege is easy. Like, that is as simple as it is. You're gonna get 10-10 all the fucking time. So, how to actually address those? I would say Camilla, you could. I don't really expect them to do it, but what you could do is Camilla, and then for Camilla, lower healing S3 / damage reduce. So that's something you could do on the Camilla. Adriana, I'm not sure what would really nerf her, because in the end, if you take away the speed buff or attack buff, it's too big of a nerf. If you make it one turn, it doesn't change shit. So you could maybe one or S3 1 turn immunity, just something simple like this, like just slightly down tune her, something like that. I'm not too sure if they would actually do this. I kind of doubt that they would do it, to be honest. And Sonya did already mention if you slightly nerf her passive, I think she would be fine. Then looking at the bottom of the list, what do we expect for anything over here? Do we expect the Wind Geralt? Man, that thing is so bad. Actually, the Dragon Warrior right now is not too bad. So that might be something that they address as well. Yeah, for me, the big question is, are they actually going to add in Demon Slayer units right away? Because the Demon Slayer might be something... Actually, the Water Gojo, I would not really rank the Water Gojo here. When I made the tier list, I had it down here. Currently, I would maybe place it more of like a 70 at the moment. Same for the Twin Angels. The Twin Angels are actually pretty decent right now, so they could up a little bit. But yeah, for normal elemental units, which they're going to buff or nerf, I'm not too sure. It could be either or, like a lot of kind of directions. And it's also the big question, are they actually going to address Demon Slayer units or not? So that is for me, my balance patch prediction. But once again, I'm also very curious to listen to you guys. What do you guys would like to see for changes in this game for balance patches? I would definitely still mention one thing is I want for PvE more consistent units like Prilia for SF/Dragons. I think that that is something that a lot of people would like, maybe even one for PC as well. But that is definitely something that I would like to see as well, just to be added in there in general. But yep, let me know in the comments what you guys think about for a balance prediction, or not necessarily for you guys the question on a balance patch prediction, but rather what would you guys like to see? What would be, in your opinion, a fair balancing, or just gutting some units, buffing some units? Let me know about that. Guys, thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you as always in the next one. Thanks for watching. If you would like to see more guides, join the Discord and check out the content tab for the guide video archive, which contains all of the guides that you might need. Hope to see you there.